Heads up, you're in the Hoodwood, the web's foremost place for sports talk and discussion. It's your boy KJ. This week, discussing NFL playoffs, divisional rounds past us, conference finals are ahead of us. What two teams survived to make it to New Orleans? What's wrong with the Miami Heat? Can anybody tell me? The enduring legacy of Lance Armstrong. Did he really try to just get paid one more time? And also, being black, like me, being a black sports writer, being a black coach, how that may be a millstone nowadays. And of course, fat dapper head slap, all ahead in the hood. Come on. Greetings from the Hoodwood, where the locals got a little too used to the balmy temperatures. And when it dropped from 65 to 25 in a little more of a day, no one was prepared for it. Least of all, your humble scribe. I'm KJ the Black Bandit. This week, we discuss NFL playoffs, divisional round, which was a classic in every sense of the word. Not one, not two, not three, but four excellent games. Starting from the Ravens and the Broncos playing a double overtime classic in Mile High. That was some game to watch. Now, if a game is good enough to make me not watch the tip-off of my beloved Bearcats, you're saying something. 5 times the Broncos took the lead, and 5 times the Ravens scrapped back. Trendon Holiday punt return for a touchdown. Ravens shrugged it off and came back. Kickoff return. The Ravens shrugged it off. And even down a score with no timeouts, the big play Ravens came through in the clutch. I'm still no Joe Flacco fan. No one's ever going to mistake me for one. But his throw to Jacoby Jones in the fourth quarter was epic. Big money, big play. Raheem Moore gambled on playing the ball instead of the man and got burned. But the strategy, or lack of it, our Broncos head coach John Fox was the real puzzler. Why, with future Hall of Famer Peyton Manning at the control, 2 timeouts, 31 seconds, and playing in Mile High where a kicker can make a 60-yarder, why did he have him take knees, down the ball, play for overtime, and then say later his team was down from taking such a titanic blow? Is your team that weak mentally? And eventually, it cost the Broncos the game, and they are now out. Ravens move on to the AFC title game where they will face the Patriots, who on Sunday evening wore out a good Texans team who had finally found their offense and could complement Arian Foster. But it seemed they were playing from behind most of the game. Matt Shaw played a decent game, but Tom Brady is still the master. He is still one of the best quarterbacks in the game. And the Patriots, for the 7th time in the Brady-Belichick era, are playing for a conference championship. And they are again playing in Foxborough. Now, the Ravens and the Patriots have already played this season. The Ravens winning 31-30 on a controversial ending where the field goal kicker, Stephen Hauschka, kicked a field goal that many people thought crossed past the goalpost on the wrong side. Bill Belichick not very happy about the ending and was jabbing at the then replacement referees, who many people thought blew that field goal call. My pick, I'm not going to reveal it right now. I'm going to have to come back to the NFL picks later in the week. The NFC side, Saturday night's game was Green Bay and San Francisco when I know, I picked Green Bay to my ever-loving regret. But come on. 4 plays into the game, Colin Kaepernick throws a pick six. You're thinking the Packers are on their way. But Colin Kaepernick showed us something. Boy, did he show us something. Making plays with his legs, his arm. He rushed for better than 175 yards and threw for close to 300. How can you not like the kid from Nevada putting himself out there and winning, besting one of the best quarterbacks in the game in Aaron Rodgers? The game was a shootout, to be sure, but when it came time for the big plays to happen in the fourth quarter, Packers were out of bullets, and the 49ers kept right on gunning to a 45-31 win. They head to the NFC title game where they will face not Seattle. Hold up. You thought Seattle was going to win. They did. Yes, you did. You were buying into the hype. I like Russell Wilson. I have no problem with him. I think he's going to be a great quarterback in this league. But something told me that Matty Ice and the Falcons were due. Even though they jumped out to a 20-0 lead and blew it badly. I was thinking that it was going to be another epic collapse and that they were going to run Mike Smith out of Atlanta on the MARTA and then some. But it seemed like that the Falcons had just enough left in the tank to win the game. Racing down the field, getting close enough for Matt Bryant to make a 49-yard game winner, even though Pete Carroll tried to ice him and the field goal went wide. Oops! You messed up, Pete. You criminal. You messed up. You played yourself. And now Atlanta is on its way to the NFC title game, hosting the Niners in the early conference championship doubleheader on Sunday. I, for one, am looking forward to a great Sunday of football. Okay, we're going to shift gears now and talk about Lance Armstrong, the disgraced cyclist who had won 7 Tour de France's and had them taken away from him due to heavy allegations of performance-enhancing drugs. The use of them may have boosted his performance. I, for one, was a big Lance Armstrong fan, admiring his battle back from testicular cancer and the way he came back to not only compete in the Tour de France, one of the most grueling athletic events in the world, but win it 7 times in a row. Armstrong came off as a beast. People asked, what is he on? And he openly mocked them in a Nike commercial. What am I on? I'm on my bike busting my ass 7 hours a day. What are you on? He dared people to say he was on something. And he was so adamant that he was taking nothing, that all he was doing was working hard, busting his butt to make himself better, that he had beaten cancer and now was winning the Tour de France. But now he comes clean to Oprah. A lengthy 2.5-hour interview is describing his exploits and how he did, in fact, cheat the sport, lie to his millions of fans, and deceive people who believed in him. And this also will tarnish the Live Strong Foundation, a group that he helped to front and found, that now carries the burden of being associated with someone who has disgraced themselves by cheating and lying and disgracing others who dared step up and point out that he did cheat and lie. I, for one, was conflicted. I was an ardent defender of Armstrong, saying there were no dirty tests. He had passed every test that they threw at him, and still they continue to come at him. And I'm not advocating anything in position that the World Anti-Doping Association or the U.S. Anti-Doping Association Agency espouse, because I think they're dirty too. I think they look the other way. They play games, and they're not as entirely truthful and forthcoming and like to witch hunt. I think that the European cycling community as a whole are no cleaner than a pig slop. They themselves dope, point fingers, accuse whoever gets to the top, like crabs in a barrel. No one can get up because everybody's trying to pull everyone down. Lance Armstrong disgraced himself, the sport, and a foundation and a cause that needs people to advocate in a time where we see real heroes like Stuart Scott of ESPN, whose brave fight against cancer, and Hoodwood's in your corner, bro. Keep on fighting. People like that, like Robin Roberts, like the late great Jimmy Valvano, who took the fight to cancer to his dying breath. To see someone like Lance Armstrong get in with them and then tarnish himself badly hurts the fight against cancer. It's not going to stop it, of course not, but it hurts it. And Lance Armstrong disgraced himself, and now he's doing tell-alls and interviews to try to get back into the limelight. It's a limelight that just doesn't want it, and he should just stop. Okay, we're going to shift gears and talk about basketball, pro version now. And the Miami Heat, many people think, are a team that is on the ropes. Now, looking at the stats, Miami is, of course, 24-12, the best record in the Eastern Conference by a mere half game over New York Knicks and a game and a half over Indiana and a couple games over Brooklyn. But many people think that Miami are basically treading. They're not playing as a defending NBA champion should. Now, keep in mind, in the middle of January, no one's really going to think that much about a struggling defending NBA champ. I mean, even with the Mavs, when they were playing last year and kind of sleepwalking through a truncated 2012 season, that they were going to be anything less than stellar in the playoffs, and it was their title for someone to take. Now, the Heat, of course, led by the dynamic LeBron James, who is closing in and should be passing the 20,000 point mark here at the time of the taping of this broadcast. LeBron James is what he is, one of the greatest players in the game today. There's been a knock on Dwayne Wade, though, which I'm finding very hard to believe. He is averaging 20.2 points a game, but was benched by Heat coach Eric Spoelstra in the midst of an eventual 104-97 loss to the Jazz Monday night. People are talking about are the Heat washed up, are the Heat fading. I, for one, am still waiting to see any kind of results. They are the top dog in the East. And say what you want about New York, Indiana, the Nets on the come up, the Bulls still patiently waiting for Derrick Rose, Atlanta, an up and down team if I've ever seen one, and the aging Boston Celtics. Say what you want about any of those contenders, but they are all pretenders to the Eastern throne, and I still say it's Miami's crown to lose, at least in the East. Now, out West, that's a different story altogether. The Thunder, 30-8. The Clippers, 39. The seemingly ageless San Antonio Spurs, 29-11. And even the Memphis Grizzlies are 24-12, have equal or better records than the Heat do. The fight is really going to be in the West. Who gets out of the West is probably one of the biggest questions, unanswered questions, and no one will know till June. And of course, the Heat will be waiting patiently, waiting for the lower creatures in their minds to fend for themselves, kill each other off, and be weakened to play a Miami defending champ who will wait patiently to carve up what's remained. But this is not your older brother's Heat. They can be, forgive me for the rhyme, beat. And I think that a team out of the West will give the Heat a lot more trouble. But the Heat are nowhere near weakened and finished, as some wonks and pundits would like to tell you or have you think. Now let's discuss a matter that I find very serious, near and dear to my heart. Recently, Rob Parker of ESPN was told that his services were no longer needed after making a rather silly statement regarding Redskins quarterback Robert Griffin III, calling him a, quote, cornball brother because he chooses to have a white girlfriend and isn't as militant as some people would like him to be. Now, I could personally care less about Robert Griffin III's politics, care less about who he dates. He's 18 years younger than me. I don't think that there's anything that he would particularly have to say that I would particularly care about. I like him because he's a dynamic quarterback. I like him because he's an exciting player. Except when he plays against my Vikings, I'm actually rooting for him to do good because I think he's a good player. But what I don't understand is that this pressing need for black journalists to want to call on black athletes to be some sort of militant out in front leaders. If they're going to speak out about topics, let them speak. Don't chastise them for it. If they choose to be silent, let them be quiet. Don't chastise them. To me, it's a very simple equation. When I was growing up, I wanted to watch Michael Jordan play. I didn't care about his politics. I want to watch Adrian Peterson run the ball. I don't care about his politics. I wanted to see Ken Griffey Jr. put him in the stands when he was playing. I didn't care about his politics. If they happen to say something that I agree with, fine. If they say something that I don't agree with, political wise, fine. I don't agree with it. But that doesn't make them any less of a quote unquote brother than some people like Rob Parker likes to think of himself. And keeping in that topic, you don't see that many black journalists out there, which is sad that Rob Parker made a statement like this and basically got himself run from a prominent forum. Jason Whitlock did the same thing, not to the same extent, but he shot off his mouth enough where he became a liability. There aren't that many black journalists. I can't see enough like me in print, on TV. You know, someone like Ralph Wiley, whom I looked up to greatly, the Michael Wilbons, the Scoop Jacksons, they're pretty far and few between. Bill Rhoden, New York, Brian Burwell, St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I can't find that many of them. I mean, you have the Stephen A. Smiths of the world, but there are more of ex-players who turn broadcasters than there are people who didn't play the game and are writing and speak about it, like myself. There's so many different ways you can go with this, but maybe you can say that for a later date. But for one, you don't see too many one black like me out there. Now, that's a real shame. Wrapping it up for the week, let's go to the Fat Dap and Head Slap of the week. Fat Dap goes to North Carolina State forward CJ Leslie. Now, he led NC State to an upset win over Duke this past weekend, and it wasn't so much his gameplay that led the Wolfpack, where I'm giving him the dap for. It was his selfless play after the game. Now, the fans at the PNC Center in Raleigh rushed the floor after upsetting then unbeaten Duke, and one of the people who were courtside and was actually on the floor was Will Prevett, a Zebulon, North Carolina resident who's a senior at North Carolina State, is wheelchair bound. He was pushed onto the court with all the throngs of people rushing the court. He was knocked over. C.J. Leslie saw this and started screaming at people to back up and picked Will Prevett up and held him up for a minute till he was able to get back into his wheelchair. Now, you can say what you want about self-centered athletes and say what you want about rushing the court. I've never rushed the court, rushed a couple of football fields in my day, helped rush it anyway. But in something that could have been really, really dangerous and scary and took a tragic turn, dap to C.J. Leslie for lending a helping hand. Now, the head slap of the week goes to, and you may think it's piling on in the wake of the national championship, but the head slap of the week goes to Manti Te'o, linebacker who was runner-up in the Heisman voting and was supposedly this tragic yet heroic figure who lost his grandmother and girlfriend within days of one another, but yet still rallied to play and persevere and play in the Irish's unbeaten regular season. Now, Manti Te'o losing his grandmother is something that can speak to me. I lost my grandmother 20 some odd years ago, but the whole thing with his girlfriend dying, and then it comes out, Deadspin.com reporting, ESPN picking it up as well, that Manti Te'o not only did not have a girlfriend, she was not dead. And whoever this girl that he was supposedly hooked up with didn't exist. That's straight out of the Bizarre book. It really is. And death ain't something to play with. You don't play with folks' emotions like that. I sympathize with Te'o for losing a relative, felt for him for his loss. But then to come to find out, oh, it was a cruel hoax. Somebody was playing with him. That's not something that you even bring up. If you even think somebody's playing with you, why even bring the girl up? He would have generated plenty of sympathy for the loss of the grandma. He should have just left it at that. Head slap from Manti Te'o. You should have known that. Well, with the music coming up in the background, you know our time in the Hoodwood is just about done. Appreciate you stopping by for a chat. You can catch Musings from the Hoodwood every week right here on YouTube. Usually Wednesday or Thursday, depending on how fast I can get it out. You can also read the printed version of Musings from the Hoodwood every Tuesday at ugabsports.com. And if you have any questions, comments on the show, or something you want to pick at me about, feel free to drop me a line. kjgreen920@gmail.com. Thank you from the Hoodwood. Until next time, fellow sports fans.